The silver spoon in my hand froze midair. The bowl of butternut squash and shrimp bisque, Leo's and my favorite, a dish I had carefully simmered for over an hour, was now completely cold. Its last wisp of steam seemed to have vanished, along with the little warmth that remained in my 8-year marriage. Across from me, Michael, the husband I had once loved with all the passion of my youth, was engrossed in his phone, his thumb swiping relentlessly across the screen. He didn't even look up at me, merely tossing out a careless comment. "Is the soup cold, honey? We can just heat it up later." Each word, so light to him, was like an invisible knife twisting in my heart. He didn't know, or rather, didn't care, that I had waited nearly 2 hours for him for this dinner. I am Emily. 8 years ago, I was a promising young architect, graduating with high honors and a future wide open. But then I met Michael. It was a whirlwind romance that led me, a girl from a good Boston family, to give up my burgeoning career, to become the steadfast support system for my husband's ambition. I believed my sacrifice was worthwhile, that as long as he succeeded and our family was happy, all my efforts would have meaning. And Michael did not disappoint. From an ordinary salesman, he climbed the ladder to regional manager, then vice president. The cramped apartment of our early years was replaced by a spacious suburban house with a sprawling garden. To outsiders, our life was the very picture of enviable success: a successful husband, a beautiful wife, and a well-behaved son. But only I, the one on the inside, knew how rotten the core of that glamorous facade was. Michael's affection diminished with every step he took up the corporate ladder. Warm family dinners were replaced by late-night client meetings and drinks. Sweet words of love were replaced by irritation and commands. He took my care for granted, viewing my sacrifices as the duty of a wife. This grand house, for all its luxury, felt colder to me than our old rented apartment ever did. The arrival of Jessica, Leo's tutor, initially felt like a breath of fresh air in my tedious life. She was only 21, a senior in the education program at the state university, with a smile as clear as morning sunshine and eyes that always sparkled with intelligence. She was patient and gentle. Within a month, she had helped Leo, my usually restless son, show remarkable improvement in his schoolwork. I genuinely grew fond of her, treating her like a younger sister. I'd often ask her to stay for dinner, buy her pretty dresses, and share with her the private thoughts of a woman. I naively believed I had found a confidant, someone who could understand my loneliness within my own home. I had no idea that behind that innocent facade was a wolf in sheep's clothing, scheming to take everything I had. That evening was like any other. After tutoring Leo, Jessica stayed for dinner with our family. The meal was quite cheerful, largely thanks to Jessica's witty stories. She knew exactly how to flatter Michael, constantly praising his talent and vision, which made my husband visibly pleased. After the meal, while I was cleaning up in the kitchen, they sat talking in the living room. I didn't pay much attention until I overheard Jessica's cloying voice. "Michael, my birthday is coming up soon. Will you buy me a present?" I instinctively stopped what I was doing, holding my breath to listen. A tutor asking a student's parent for a birthday gift felt wrong. But I told myself I was probably being too sensitive. "Of course. What would you like?" Michael's voice was cheerful, a stark contrast to the curt tone he always used with me. "Well," Jessica hesitated for a moment, her voice dripping with sweetness. "A few days ago, I walked by a jewelry store and saw this beautiful new watch. But it was so expensive, I didn't dare buy it." "How expensive?" "Almost $2,000. $2,000? I stood frozen. I remembered last month when I suggested buying a new dishwasher for a little over $800 to lighten my housework. Michael had brushed it off. "Don't be ridiculous," he'd said. "It's just a few dishes. Do you have too much time on your hands? We can use that money for something more useful." And now, a $2,000 watch for the tutor. I wanted to see how he would respond. I held my breath, waiting. I hoped, a fragile sliver of hope, that he would refuse, that he would say it was too expensive, too unreasonable. But no, Michael's answer was like a sledgehammer blow to my head. "Is that all? $2,000? All right, I'll take you to buy it this weekend. Consider it a bonus for helping Leo improve so much." The fruit platter in my hands crashed to the floor, apples and grapes scattered everywhere. Both Michael and Jessica jumped, turning to look. "Emily, what's wrong with you? Can't you even hold a tray?" Michael snapped, his brow furrowed. Jessica rushed over, her face a mask of fake concern. "Are you okay, Emily? Let me clean that up for you." I couldn't hear anything anymore. My ears were ringing, my vision blurred. I just stared at the two faces before me, one my husband, the other a woman I had treated like a sister. They were looking at me, but in their eyes I saw only unfamiliarity and a flicker of guilt they were trying to hide. I understood then. The perfect velvet curtain I had tried so hard to weave for this marriage had finally been torn apart by their own hands. Behind it lay a naked, disgusting truth. I didn't cry. I didn't cause a scene. I just quietly bent down to pick up the broken pieces, as if trying to gather the shattered fragments of my own heart. But I knew that some things, once broken, could never be whole again. That night, I made a decision. I had to know the entire truth behind this perfect play. What would Emily do to unmask her calculating husband and his manipulative tutor? What other terrible secrets were waiting to be discovered? The fruit platter crashing to the floor was just the beginning of the collapse of the entire world I had foolishly believed was perfect. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay with my back to Michael, pretending to be sound asleep, but my eyes were wide open in the darkness, staring at the blank wall. The sound of his steady breathing beside me, the man on whose arm I had rested my head for countless nights, now seemed alien and so repulsive it made me sick. $2,000 for a watch. A bonus. I wondered how many times he had rewarded her. And what were those other rewards? Were they the sudden business trips to meet clients in other states, or the late-night meetings from which he returned smelling of a woman's perfume, blaming it on some secretary in a stuffy conference room? Before, I had chosen to believe him. I told myself not to be suspicious, that a smart wife must trust her husband. But it turned out my trust was just a veil for my own stupidity. I had willingly blinded myself, deafened myself to the most obvious signs. Now that the veil was torn, every memory, every small detail came flooding back, as clear as a slow-motion film. I remembered about 2 months ago, Jessica showed up for Leo's session with a brand new designer handbag. At the time, I had naively complimented it. She just smiled shyly and said it was a bonus she'd received from the university, a treat for herself. I believed her, even feeling happy for her, thinking what a diligent, independent student she was. Looking back now, how could a student, no matter how many tutoring jobs she had, afford a handbag that cost nearly $1,500? I remember the times Michael suddenly wanted to have online meetings at home in the evening. He claimed a project was urgent and needed to coordinate with his team. And coincidentally, on those evenings, Jessica would often stay later than usual, under the pretext of helping Leo review his lessons more thoroughly. They would sit in Michael's home office with the door closed. Whenever I brought in snacks, I would find them sitting far apart, looking seriously at the computer screen. But a few times, I noticed her cheeks were unusually flushed, her gaze slightly avoidant when she looked at me. I had dismissed it, thinking she was probably tired after a long day. And that scent, a sweet, youthful perfume. The same scent I had smelled on Michael's shirts when he came home. He said it was from standing too close to a female colleague in the elevator. I had believed him. Until one day, when I helped Jessica pick up her jacket that had fallen behind the sofa, that scent hit me again. Identical. At that moment, a flicker of suspicion crossed my mind, but I quickly extinguished it. I didn't dare to think, didn't dare to believe that the husband I loved with all my heart and the little sister I cherished could betray me so brazenly together. Denial is a sedative. It protected me from facing the painful truth, but all sedatives eventually wear off. Tonight's final straw, the $2,000 watch, had forced me awake. The initial pain subsided, replaced by a chilling coldness. My heart no longer felt broken. Instead, it felt like it had turned to stone. I couldn't live in this deception for another day. I had to know the truth. I had to have proof. I had to witness everything with my own eyes. Throwing a hysterical fit wasn't my style. I am an architect. My work has taught me to think logically, to plan meticulously before acting. I would not turn myself into a crazy woman, a laughingstock for the world and for those two. I would be silent. I would observe. And I would gather evidence. I would expose them, not with slaps or curses, but with my intelligence and reason. I would turn their perfect play into a tragedy of my own direction. A plan began to form in my mind. A bold and somewhat ruthless plan. But it was the only thing I could do to protect myself and my son. I needed a reason to leave the house for a few days. A reason convincing enough that Michael wouldn't suspect a thing, creating an empty stage for our two lead actors to perform freely. I reached up and wiped away a tear that had unconsciously rolled down my cheek. No, I wouldn't cry anymore. Tears were a luxury now. From this moment on, there would only be action. In this game, I would be the one to set the rules, and I would be the one to win. The next morning, I woke before the alarm. The dull headache from a sleepless night made me a bit dizzy, but my mind was unusually clear. The plan in my head was fully formed, detailed down to the last step. I got out of bed, trying not to make a sound that would wake Michael. I looked at him, his handsome face peaceful in sleep, without a single worry. I wondered if his dreams included me and our son, or just the sweet smile of the young tutor. A wave of disgust washed over me, but I quickly suppressed it. This was not the time to be weak. I went into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. Dark circles under my eyes, a gaunt face. I told myself to pull it together. I applied light makeup, just enough to hide my fatigue, and chose an elegant business dress. I had to maintain the image of a perfect wife, showing no sign of anything unusual. I prepared breakfast as meticulously as ever. Michael came downstairs, yawning, still looking sleepy. He looked at me, perhaps a little surprised by my calm demeanor after last night's incident. "You're up early," he asked, his tone slightly probing. "I need to pack a few things." "I'm going to my parents for a bit," I replied calmly, still smoothly spreading butter on a slice of toast. Michael paused. "To your parents? So suddenly? You didn't tell me." There it was, the reaction I had predicted. I turned to look at him, my eyes feigning worry, my voice trembling slightly. "It's Mom. She called late last night. She fell and had to be hospitalized. I'm so worried I have to go see how she is." I had prepared this script. My mother did have a history of heart problems, and this excuse was the most plausible, impossible to refute. As expected, hearing my words, Michael's expression softened. The initial suspicion was replaced by a touch of guilt. "Oh God, why wasn't she more careful? Is it serious?" "I don't know for sure yet. She just said she fractured her hip. But I can't rest easy. I was thinking of going for 2 days, over the weekend. I'll be back on Monday." "All right then," Michael nodded. "You go ahead. I'll take care of Leo. If you need anything, just call me." He spoke words of concern, but in his eyes, I saw a flicker of joy he was trying to hide. He was happy I was leaving, happy he would have 2 days of freedom to do whatever he wanted, with whomever he wanted. My heart grew cold, but on the surface, I still acted grateful. "Thank you, honey. Please take good care of Leo for me." After dropping Leo off at school, I didn't actually drive to my parents'. Instead, I drove straight to a specialty electronics store downtown. I had done my research online the night before. I needed tiny, wireless cameras that could be hidden and connected directly to a smartphone. I walked into the most professional-looking store. The young salesman looked at me, a well-dressed woman entering a security equipment store, with some surprise. "Can I help you, ma'am?" "I need discreet, hidden cameras. Good video quality, live streaming to a phone, and clear audio recording," I said, getting straight to the point. The salesman seemed to understand, not asking many questions. He led me to a glass case and showed me several different models. Some were disguised as phone chargers, others looked like buttons, and some were as small as a pencil eraser. I chose 3 of the smallest ones, the kind with a rechargeable battery that could last for over 48 hours, just enough for my plan. I also bought a large capacity memory card. Holding these tiny devices felt strange. I, an architect, a wife, was now acting like a private investigator, setting a trap for my own husband. It felt a little pathetic, but my determination quickly overrode everything else. I had no other choice. Leaving the electronics store, I drove back home. Michael had already left for work. The huge house was empty, just me. This was my chance. My heart was pounding, a mixture of excitement and fear. I was invading the privacy of my own home, of my own husband. But then the image of them, laughing behind my back, reappeared, giving me courage. The first camera I placed in the living room. I skillfully hid it behind a decorative plant on the TV stand, its lens aimed directly at the sofa where they often sat and talked. The second one I took up to our master bedroom. I hesitated for a moment. This was our most private space. But then I thought, it ceased to be ours the moment a third person entered the picture. I hid the camera inside the digital alarm clock on the nightstand. The final and most crucial location was Michael's home office. This was where they often had their extra tutoring sessions. I scanned the room books and documents neatly arranged. I decided to hide the camera inside the small Bluetooth speaker Michael used for music. This position could cover the entire room, from the desk to the long sofa in the corner. After installing all 3 cameras, I connected them to an app on a separate, secret phone I had prepared. The images from all 3 angles appeared clearly. Everything was ready. I picked up the small suitcase I had packed with a few changes of clothes, making it look like I was really going to my parents', and left the house. But instead of heading for the highway, I drove to a small, discreet hotel in a different part of the city. I would stay here for the next 2 days, monitoring their every move from a distance. Sitting in the unfamiliar hotel room, I opened my phone and looked at the 3 small windows displaying the live feed from my house. The house was still and quiet. But I knew that in just a few hours, when night fell, this stage would no longer be silent. The play I had so painstakingly set up was about to begin. And I, the reluctant director, was nervously awaiting the performance of my 2 lead actors. My request for time off had been sent. My 2 days of freedom had begun, and I knew I had to make every second count. That evening, I sat in the hotel room, my eyes glued to the phone screen. 7 p.m. Michael came home, followed by Jessica. She still wore that innocent expression, politely greeting me over the phone when Michael called to check in. "Oh, you're visiting your parents, Emily? Travel safe. I hope your mom feels better soon." Her clear voice, full of fake concern, made my stomach churn. "Thanks, Jessica. Please help look after Leo for me," I replied, trying to keep my voice natural. After a quick dinner, Michael said to Leo, "Hey, bud, why don't you have a sleepover at Grandma and Grandpa's tonight? I have to work late with Miss Jessica." Leo looked disappointed, but he was a good kid and didn't dare argue with his father. He trudged off with his pillow to his grandparents' house next door. My heart ached watching my son. I felt guilty for letting him witness this, even indirectly. But I told myself this was the only way to protect him from a deceitful father and a toxic family environment in the long run. Once they were alone in the house, the atmosphere changed instantly. The play began. The camera in the living room showed that as soon as the door closed behind Leo, Jessica dropped her demure act. She threw her arms around Michael's neck, stood on her toes, and kissed him on the cheek. "Finally, we have the place to ourselves." Her voice was a seductive purr. Michael grinned, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her close. "Miss me?" "I was dying," she cooed, burying her head in his chest. "These 2 days without her here are like heaven." I gripped the phone, my nails digging into the plastic case. Heaven. So the days I was home were hell for them. They performed an intimate scene right on the sofa where I sat every day. They hugged, they kissed, gestures Michael hadn't shown me in a very long time. I felt the blood freeze in my veins. The pain of betrayal, witnessed firsthand, was 100,000 times more agonizing than I could have ever imagined. I wanted to turn off the phone, to stop watching, but some invisible force kept me there. I had to watch until the very end, to burn the true faces of these 2 people into my memory. After a while, they moved into Michael's office, where the most important camera was. The door closed, but the audio was crystal clear. "Honey, about that watch you promised me. Can we go get it this weekend?" Jessica's voice rang out. "Of course, Sunday afternoon I'll take you. Pick whichever one you like," Michael replied, his voice full of indulgence. "But," Jessica hesitated, Isn't $2,000 a bit much? I'm afraid Emily will find out. What's there to be afraid of? Michael scoffed. It's my money. I can spend it how I want. Besides, what does that old-fashioned woman know about style anyway? Don't you worry, I've got everything handled. Old-fashioned woman. Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. Michael, the husband who once said he loved me for my intelligence and grace, now called me by such a derogatory name. In his eyes, I was just a boring, plain housewife, no longer worthy of him. Tears started streaming down my face, unstoppable. I had sacrificed my career, my youth for him. I had accepted a life in the background so he could shine, and this is what I got in return. Humiliation, contempt, betrayal. I buried my face in my hands, my shoulders shaking. My sobs were trapped in my throat, choked and painful. It felt like 1,000 shards of glass were cutting into my heart. I had loved the wrong person, trusted the wrong person. My entire world, everything I had built over the past 8 years, had completely crumbled in one night. I cried for a long time, until there were no tears left to cry. The pain turned into a terrifying emptiness. I lifted my head and looked back at the phone screen. The scene in the office was still unfolding. They had no idea that their every action, every word, was being recorded. They were still lost in their own little drama. The weakness in me vanished, replaced by a cold hatred. I would not break. I would make them pay for every tear, every ounce of pain they caused me. This video was my strongest evidence, my sharpest weapon. I wouldn't delete it. I would save it, watch it over and over, to remind myself not to soften, not to forgive. They had lit this fire themselves, and I would make sure it burned down all their lies. This war, I didn't just want to win. I wanted them to lose everything, to be utterly destroyed. The feeling of being betrayed by both my husband and the person I considered a sister was perhaps the deepest form of pain. But was that all I had to endure? After the first night of naked truth, I thought I wouldn't be able to bear any more. But no, when a person is pushed to the brink, their endurance becomes astonishingly powerful. I didn't turn off the cameras, nor did I stop watching. I wanted to see what other disgusting scenes this play had in store. I wanted to etch their true faces into my mind, so I would never again harbor any illusions or weaknesses. The second day of my trip was a Saturday. Michael didn't go to work. He dedicated the entire day to his young mistress. They cooked together, watched movies, laughed, and talked in my house, on my sofa. They acted as if they were the true owners of the place, and I was just a passerby who had left. Leo was almost completely ignored. Michael just called his parents and asked them to take Leo to the park. He lied, saying he had to stay home to handle urgent company work. The boy probably sensed something was off, but he didn't dare ask. Watching my son trudge off with his grandparents through the security camera feed by the gate, my heart clenched again. In the afternoon, after tiring of their amorous activities, Michael and Jessica sat in the office again. They probably thought it was the safest place, and indeed, it was there that I heard things even more horrifying than physical betrayal. Their conversation was no longer sweet nothings, but cold, malicious calculations. So Jessica's voice had a hint of petulance. "When are you going to deal with her for good? I'm tired of sneaking around like this." Michael sighed, the same sigh he often used with me. "Patience, my dear. She's completely dependent on me now. No career, hardly any friends left. If she leaves me, she'll have to go crawling back to her parents, and you know how proud she is. She'd never be able to handle that." I gritted my teeth. Dependent. Proud. He was talking about me. The wife who gave up a brilliant career so he could have the life he had today. He saw my sacrifice as a weakness, a vulnerability he could exploit to control me. Jessica giggled, a sharp, venomous sound. "It's true what they say, a woman's fate depends on her husband. She has a degree, a fancy education, but what's it for? She just putters around the kitchen all day, smelling of grease. Not like me, always fresh and young. No wonder you only want to be with me. I'm the only one who truly understands you." Michael joined in, his voice full of self-satisfaction. "Being with her is as bland as dishwater. All she ever talks about is Leo, groceries, the utility bills. Not a single drop of romance or excitement." Sometimes I feel like I'm living with a housekeeper, not a wife. A housekeeper. I was stunned. In his eyes, I, his wife, the mother of his beautiful son, the one who had built this family, was nothing more than a housekeeper. The insult was indescribable. The pain in me was no longer a sharp pang, but a numb, icy coldness. The love, the respect, everything I ever had for this man was truly dead. It had died a choked, painful death. But the show wasn't over. They began to compare me to Jessica brazenly. Michael criticized my dowdy clothes, my lack of self-care. Jessica complained my cooking wasn't good, saying my barbecue ribs couldn't compare to hers, even though I was the one who had patiently taught her my family's secret recipe. They laughed at my efforts, turned my care and concern into something ridiculous and boring. They reveled in having deceived me, a stupid, old-fashioned woman. I sat there, motionless, listening to every word. I wasn't crying anymore. Instead, a cold smile spread across my lips, a smile of utter contempt. "Very well, Michael. Very well, Jessica. You've shown me your true colors. Don't blame me for being cruel. You mocked me as a housekeeper? Well, this housekeeper will show you what she can do when pushed to the edge." I didn't turn off the phone. I continued to record everything. The entire humiliating conversation, every single word, was saved. This wouldn't just be evidence of an affair, it would be proof of moral decay, a moral indictment they could not deny. I wouldn't just make them lose each other. I would make them lose their honor, lose everything they were so proud of. I had once thought that maybe I would just quietly divorce him, take my son, and start a new life. But no, after hearing those words, I changed my mind. I could not leave in silence. My silence would be condoning evil, admitting defeat. I had to fight not just for myself, but for all the women who have endured such betrayal and humiliation. I would not let them build their happiness on the suffering of others. But just as my anger reached its peak, I overheard another part of their conversation, a part that made me realize this betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was a conspiracy, calculated more carefully than I could have ever imagined. The shock of the humiliation hadn't even subsided when I was hit with another blow. A blow that made me realize how pathetically naive I had been. After they had tired of belittling me, their conversation shifted to a much more practical topic: money. "Honey," Jessica's voice turned sweet again. "That condo in the new urban development you showed me, I love it so much. The view is amazing, and it's close to downtown. Let's buy it." Michael seemed a little hesitant. "That place isn't cheap, Jess. It's almost $1 million. I don't have that much cash on hand." "So, we'll take out a small mortgage," she purred. "Besides, I heard you two have a joint savings account with a pretty hefty sum in it, right?" I flinched. That savings account was everything we had accumulated over 8 years. A large portion of it was the inheritance my parents gave me, and part was from freelance design projects I did before I quit working entirely. Michael had contributed very little. I had trusted him with that account, considering it our joint asset, the foundation for Leo's future. "That account exists," Michael admitted, "but it's in both our names. I can't just withdraw from it, and if she finds out, she'll raise hell." "You're so silly," Jessica scoffed, with a condescending tone I had never heard from her before. "Just tell her you need a large sum of capital for a business venture with a friend, some real estate project. Paint a picture of huge profits. I guarantee she'll buy it. She loves you. She trusts you completely. What does she know about business anyway? She'll believe whatever you say." I felt my chest tighten, as if someone was squeezing it, making it impossible to breathe. So that was it. They weren't just cheating me emotionally, they were plotting to steal my hard-earned money. A meticulously planned, ruthless scheme. They were using my own love and trust as a weapon against me. The pain now turned into a raging fury. The bastards, the goddamn thieves. Michael seemed convinced by his mistress's plan. His voice was hesitant, but he was considering it. But withdrawing such a large amount, she'll definitely ask questions. If there's no real investment, how do I explain it later? Just say the project failed, a total loss. Business has its ups and downs, that's normal, Jessica replied nonchalantly, as if making hundreds of thousands of dollars vanish was the simplest thing in the world. Then you can act all sad and disappointed. She cares about you, she won't blame you. In fact, she'll probably comfort you. And then we can quietly use that money to make payments on our house. It's perfect, isn't it? Perfect. Yes, a perfect plan, a filthy plan built on lies and boundless greed. They didn't just want to steal my money, they wanted to make me a fool who, after losing her savings, would turn around and comfort the man who scammed her. Their cruelty and calculation had truly surpassed any limit I could imagine. I sat motionless, gripping the phone, memorizing every word. This recording was more precious than gold. It wasn't just evidence of an affair, it was evidence of a conspiracy to commit fraud and theft. With this, I could not only get a divorce, I could send them both to jail. Michael seemed completely won over. "All right, let me think about it. Maybe I'll talk to her next week," he said, his voice now more decisive. "We have to do it quickly before she suspects anything." Hearing that, I couldn't listen anymore. I turned off the phone screen and threw it on the bed. My whole body was shaking with rage. I paced the hotel room like a caged animal. I had been so stupid, so blind. I had spent 8 years loving and trusting a man only to realize he was nothing more than a con artist. And that Tutor, she wasn't some naive girl who had lost her way. She was a venomous snake, a professional gold digger. I had to act, and act immediately, before they could execute their plan. I couldn't let them take a single cent from that savings account. It wasn't just my money, it was my son's future. But what could I do? Confronting them now would be like playing my hand too early. They would deny everything, maybe even turn the tables and blame me. I needed a different plan, a smarter one that would make them pay without any room for denial. The architect's logic inside me began to take over, suppressing the rage. I sat down at the desk, took out a pen and paper, and started outlining my next steps. My revenge plan would no longer target just their affair. It would target their finances and the law. I wouldn't just expose them, I would ruin them completely. But before that, I needed to know my opponent better. Jessica, who was she really? Was her past as pristine as her appearance suggested? A gut feeling told me that behind that angelic face were many more dark secrets. The weekend passed in a blur of torment and fury. On Sunday evening I drove home. Michael and Leo were fast asleep. I entered the house quietly, without turning on the lights. The house was the same, but to me, it had become a foreign place, a stage full of deceit. The next morning, I woke up, prepared breakfast, took my son to school, playing the part of a wife and mother who knew nothing. Michael looked at me, probably searching for any unusual sign after my 2-day trip. But no, I had concealed my emotions perfectly. My expression was calm, even showing a little fatigue like a daughter who had been worrying about her aging mother. This completely reassured him. He had no idea a storm was brewing inside my head. As soon as Michael left for work, I began my operation. My first target was to investigate Jessica. I didn't have much information about her beyond the fact she was a senior at the State University's College of Education. I started with the basics: social media. I went to her personal page. It was a perfectly curated image of a wholesome, positive young woman. Photos of her participating in volunteer activities, playing with children, philosophical posts about life and love. Not a single trace of designer goods or extravagant parties. She was clearly very smart. She knew how to create an impeccable public persona. But I knew nothing in this world is truly perfect. I patiently scrolled through old posts, through photos from several years back, and then I found a clue. In a high school prom photo album, I saw Jessica posing with a group of girlfriends. I zoomed in, trying to read the names of the tagged people. Most of the accounts were inactive, but one name caught my eye: Megan. I clicked on Megan's profile. It was a lively, active account. Glancing through her page, I could tell she was a straightforward, spunky person, the complete opposite of Jessica's feigned gentleness. And most importantly, Jessica's name was not on Megan's friends list. That was strange. Two people who had been so close in a photo, why weren't they social media friends anymore? Something must have happened. My intuition told me this. Megan was the key to unlocking Jessica's past. But how could I approach her? I couldn't just message her out of the blue. I needed a pretext. I continued to research Megan. I read her posts, looked at her photos. I discovered she worked for an event planning company and had a special hobby, collecting unique ceramic mugs. There it was, my opportunity. I had a close friend, Sarah, who was the marketing director for a famous ceramics brand. I immediately called Sarah and asked for a favor. "Sarah, can you help me arrange a meeting with a young woman named Megan? I saw on her profile she's a big fan of your company's products. You could say you're looking for a few social media influencers to collaborate on a new product launch. Invite her for a chat, and of course, I'll cover all the expenses." Sarah was a bit surprised. Why the sudden interest in this stuff? And who is this girl? "She's very important. Just help me out, okay? I'll explain everything later." Sarah was my best friend. She didn't ask any more questions and agreed. 2 days later, Sarah called back to say she had scheduled a meeting with Megan at a coffee shop for the upcoming weekend. I told Sarah to let the conversation happen naturally and not to mention me. I would sit at a different table, observing from a distance. The meeting went according to plan. Megan arrived looking excited, clearly pleased to be noticed by such a big brand. After she finished her business talk with Sarah, I waited for Sarah to leave before I slowly approached Megan's table. I offered a friendly smile. "Excuse me, mind if I sit here for a moment?" Megan was a little surprised but nodded. I introduced myself as a fellow ceramics enthusiast who had overheard her conversation. I started by talking about topics I knew she was interested in. Gradually, the atmosphere became more open. When I felt the time was right, I skillfully steered the conversation toward my real interest. "You know, you remind me of an old acquaintance of mine. You have a similar look, pretty, smart," I said, casually scrolling through my phone. "Ah, here she is. See if you think you look alike." I showed Megan the photo of her and Jessica that I had saved. The moment she saw the picture, the smile on Megan's face vanished. Her expression turned cold, tinged with contempt. "You know her?" she asked sharply. I knew I was on the right track. "Not exactly, no. Let's just say I'm having some trouble that involves her," I said, my voice full of feigned sadness. "Can I trust you? I'm really at a loss here." Perhaps seeing the sincerity and desperation in my face, Megan sighed. "All right, I can't stand her anyway. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you everything. Consider it helping you out, and also preventing others from being fooled by her." And then Megan began to speak. A not-so-innocent past of Jessica's slowly unfolded. A past far darker and more calculating than I could have ever imagined. Megan took a sip of her coffee, her gaze distant as if reliving an unpleasant memory. "Jessica and I used to be best friends," she began, her voice laced with bitterness. "Close enough to share every secret. In high school, she was completely different. Her family wasn't well off. She came from a farming family in a rural town, so she always had this deep-seated insecurity and a fierce desire to change her life. I used to feel sorry for her and helped her out a lot. I listened silently, trying not to miss a single detail. Everything changed when we went to college," Megan continued. "She started to realize that her beauty was her most powerful weapon. She stopped focusing on her studies and spent all her time polishing her appearance, finding ways to get close to wealthy people. She told me, in this day and age, being beautiful is a kind of talent. It would be stupid not to use it. I tried to talk her out of it, but it was no use. The first incident that made me truly disappointed in her was with a professor at our university." Megan lowered her voice, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. "He was a married man with a family, highly respected by the students. Jessica knew he favored her because she was good at his subject. She deliberately created situations to be close to him, texting him about assignments late at night, making suggestive comments. The professor, probably in a moment of weakness, fell for it. She wasn't in love with him at all. Her only goal was to get him to help her with her grades, recommend her for scholarships, and most importantly, to get money from him. She constantly pleaded poverty, saying her family was struggling, that she needed money for tuition, for books. That professor gave her everything. I was stunned. So this innocent damsel in distress act wasn't new for Jessica. What happened then? I asked urgently. Then his wife found out. Megan sighed. She came to the campus and caused a huge scene. The whole College of Education was in an uproar. But you know what? Jessica put on an Oscar-worthy performance. She cried, claimed she was being harassed and coerced by the professor. She produced text messages that she had deliberately saved messages that only made her look good. In the end, the professor was disciplined, lost his reputation, and his family fell apart. And Jessica? She walked away without a scratch. In fact, people felt sorry for her, believing she was the victim. After that, I couldn't even look at her anymore. I cut off all contact. Megan's story sent a chill down my spine. Jessica wasn't just a gold digger, she was incredibly manipulative and cruel. She was willing to trample on anyone's reputation and happiness to get what she wanted, and she always knew how to play the victim. "Do you know why I'm telling you this?" Megan suddenly asked, looking directly into my eyes. "Because you remind me of that professor's wife. A kind, trusting woman who was deceived by that venomous snake. I don't want to see that tragedy happen again. I don't know what kind of trouble she's causing you, but I'm warning you, be careful with her. Never, ever believe her tears." I took Megan's hand, my voice sincere. "Thank you, Megan. You've helped me so much. I won't let myself become the next victim." The conversation ended. I had gained an unexpected ally and invaluable information. I now understood Jessica's character much better. She was no ordinary opponent. To deal with someone like her, I couldn't just use evidence of an affair. I had to hit her where it hurt the most, where she felt the most pride. I returned to my hotel, my mind in turmoil. If I made everything public, I could get entangled in a messy legal battle. Jessica was an expert at playing the victim. She could turn the tables at any moment, just like she did with the professor's wife. I couldn't risk it. I needed a decisive blow, one that would leave her with no way to recover. A blow that didn't need a courtroom or arguments, only the truth and the judgment of society. I sat in front of my laptop, thinking, what was most important to Jessica right now? It wasn't money, and it wasn't Michael. Michael was just a big fish she had caught. If she lost this one, she could catch another. The most important thing to her was her future, the career she was trying so hard to build. Megan had said Jessica was a senior, interning, and about to be offered a full-time contract at a prestigious private elementary school, a school that highly valued the ethics and character of its teachers. One small stain could ruin everything. There it was, her Achilles heel. I wouldn't confront her, I wouldn't have a screaming match. I would turn the entire parent body of that school into her jury. I would let them, the people entrusting their children's futures to this outstanding young teacher, judge for themselves whether she was worthy of their trust. A more detailed, and more ruthless, plan began to take shape. My play was about to enter its most dramatic act, and this time, I would ensure the villain had no chance of a comeback. Once I had identified Jessica's career and reputation as the ultimate target, my next steps became clear and decisive. I no longer felt lost or hesitant. Instead, a cold calm settled over me. I knew this was a risky move. If I wasn't careful, I could be countersued for defamation. But I had irrefutable proof. And more importantly, I wasn't acting out of blind jealousy. I was acting to uphold moral values, to expose someone unfit to stand in a classroom. I told myself I was doing the right thing. The school where Jessica was interning was a well-known private institution called Sunrise Academy. It was a school with exorbitant tuition fees, catering to the children of the city's elite. To even get an internship there required an impressive resume and multiple rounds of rigorous interviews. I knew that for someone from Jessica's background, securing a position at Sunrise Academy was her ticket to a new life, her greatest source of pride, a stepping stone for her greater ambitions. Therefore, destroying her reputation there would be a fatal blow, more painful than any other punishment. My plan was simple. I would send the video evidence of the affair and the dirty schemes to the email inboxes of every parent at the school. I would add no personal commentary, no sob story, no accusations. I would let the truth speak for itself. I was confident that no parent, after watching that video, would tolerate having their child taught by someone of such depraved character. The biggest hurdle now was getting the email list of all the parents. This was confidential information. I couldn't ask friends or use regular connections. It required finesse and a bit of risk. I decided to do it myself, to walk into the lion's den. I went to the Sunrise Academy website to do some research. Luckily, I discovered that this coming weekend, the school was hosting an open house seminar for parents of prospective first graders. It was an open event, allowing outsiders to attend. This was my golden opportunity. I would pose as a mother looking for a school for her son and blend in. I prepared meticulously for my role. I chose an outfit that was elegant and sophisticated, but not overly flashy, fitting the style of the wealthy mothers who would be there. I researched the school's curriculum, facilities, and faculty so I could speak naturally. I even concocted a backstory for my son. Everything had to be perfect, without a single flaw. I knew that at an event like this, there would be sign-in sheets, lists being passed around. In the chaos of a crowded event, with a little quick thinking and a bit of luck, I could get what I needed. I also anticipated the possibility of running into Jessica there. She would surely be present as a future teacher of the school. I wondered what her reaction would be upon seeing me. Would she be flustered, afraid, or would she put on her usual innocent act? I didn't know. But I was mentally prepared to face her. In fact, I looked forward to it. I wanted to look her in the eye and see how that venomous snake would act in front of the person she was so callously betraying. The plan was set, the props were ready. The stage at Sunrise Academy was waiting. All that was left was for the weekend to arrive for my play to officially begin. This time I wasn't just the director, I was also an actress, and I believed that with this performance I would win the greatest prize of all, justice. The silence before a storm is always the most terrifying, and I was in the eye of my own hurricane. On the day of the open house, I arrived at Sunrise Academy quite early. The school was indeed as prestigious as its reputation suggested, spacious, modern, and beautifully designed. Everything exuded an air of luxury and class. I walked into the main hall, where a number of parents were already checking in. The atmosphere was highly professional. School staff in smart uniforms greeted guests with bright smiles. I blended into the crowd, playing the part of a mother searching for the best educational environment for her son. I went to the registration desk and entered my information into a tablet, all fake, of course, from the name to the phone number. While typing, I scanned my surroundings, searching for my target. As I had predicted, on the registration desk was a thick binder with a label that read, "Seminar Attendee List." My heart skipped a beat. There it was. But how to get it? 2 staff members were sitting at the desk, their eyes barely leaving the binder. I knew I couldn't be hasty. I completed my registration, received a brochure packet, and a name tag. Then, instead of going straight into the auditorium, I lingered in the lobby, pretending to admire the student artwork on display. My eyes never stopped watching the registration desk, waiting for an opportunity. The opportunity came about 15 minutes later. A distinguished-looking parent, likely someone important, arrived with an entourage. Recognizing him, both staff members immediately stood up, warmly greeting him and ushering him into a private reception room. For a brief moment, the registration desk was unattended. This was my only chance. Without a second's hesitation, I quickly moved closer, my heart pounding in my chest. I pretended to be looking for something in my purse, then accidentally dropped my phone right next to the binder. As I bent down to pick it up, in one swift, decisive motion that I had rehearsed in my mind 100 times, I slid the binder out and tucked it inside the large school catalog I was holding. I stood up straight, my heart still racing, but I kept my expression as calm as possible. I glanced around. No one had noticed. Everyone was busy with their own affairs. I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling like I had just pulled off an impossible mission. I quickly found a secluded corner near the restrooms and opened the catalog to check. It was the list. A long, detailed list with the names, phone numbers, and email addresses of hundreds of parents. I had the most important weapon in my hands. I hastily took out my phone and photographed every single page. I had to be quick before anyone discovered the binder was missing. Once I was sure I had captured everything, I returned to the lobby, found a discreet spot, and cleverly placed the binder back where it belonged, slipped between other stacks of documents. Everything had gone off without a hitch. Just as a wave of relief washed over me, a familiar voice sounded right behind me, a voice I never wanted to hear at that moment. "Oh, Emily, what are you doing here?" I spun around. It was Jessica. She was standing there in her teacher-intern uniform, her pretty face lightly made up, a look of feigned surprise on her lips. My heart stopped. Had she seen anything? How long had she been there? I tried to remain calm, forcing a weak smile. "Ah, Jessica, hi. I'm here to check out the school for a friend. She's thinking of enrolling her son here." I fabricated an excuse. Jessica squinted at me, a probing, meaningful look. "A friend? I don't see her with you. And you seem very interested in the school. I saw you walking around the lobby for a while." Her words made me nervous. Had she been watching me? I tried to keep my expression natural. "Oh, my friend was busy, so she asked me to come check it out first. The school is so beautiful, I was just taking a look around." "Is that so?" Jessica smiled, a smile whose meaning I couldn't decipher. "Well, feel free to look around. I have to get to the auditorium now. I'm one of the school's representative teachers speaking today. It was quite an honor to be chosen." She deliberately emphasized her important role, a veiled boast. She wanted to show me she was no longer the humble tutor, but someone of a different status. I just nodded. "Well, good luck." Jessica turned and walked away, her posture full of confidence and pride. But just before she disappeared, she glanced back at me one more time, and in her eyes, I saw a flash of warning and defiance. The unexpected encounter filled me with a sense of unease. Had she suspected something, or was it just a coincidence? The confrontation with Jessica at Sunrise Academy was like a bucket of cold water on my smoothly progressing plan. Her final look, full of defiance and hidden meaning, haunted me. Did she suspect something? Or was it just the arrogance of someone who thought she was winning, trying to taunt me? I couldn't be sure. The seminar began. I entered the auditorium and chose a seat in the back row, far enough to observe everything without being noticed. I no longer had the focus to listen to speeches about educational methods. All my attention was on the stage, where Jessica sat in the front row reserved for faculty. She sat there, back straight, face attentive, occasionally smiling and nodding at the parents in the front rows. She played the part of a passionate, dedicated young teacher flawlessly. Seeing her sanctimonious act, my anger flared again. I wondered if the parents here, who placed their full trust in this school, knew that one of their children's future teachers was a person of corrupt character, someone who was actively destroying another family's happiness. When it was time for the young teacher representative to speak, Jessica walked confidently to the podium. Her voice was clear and eloquent, her words carefully chosen about the mission of education, about loving children. She talked about being a shining example for students to follow. I sat in the audience wanting to laugh out loud. A shining example? More like a shining example of deceit, manipulation, and immorality. When the seminar ended, while other parents crowded around the teachers for more information, I quietly slipped out. I needed to leave before Jessica had another chance to approach me. But it seemed she had been waiting for me. Just as I stepped into the lobby, she appeared out of nowhere, blocking my path. "Emily, leaving so soon? Did you like my speech?" she asked, her voice still sweet, but her eyes held no kindness. "It was great," I replied curtly, trying to get past her, but she moved to block me again. This time, the smile was gone from her face, replaced by a cold, provocative expression. "You know," she lowered her voice, just enough for the two of us to hear, "I know you're not here just to check out the school for a friend. You're following me, aren't you?" I froze. So she knew. "What are you talking about?" "I don't understand," I tried to deny. Jessica smirked, a look of pure contempt. "You can stop pretending. Did you think you could fool me? Do you think I'm an idiot? You love Michael, but he doesn't love you anymore. You should just accept that. The more you try to hold on, the more pathetic you look." Her every word was a dagger to my pride. She not only admitted to their relationship but was also insulting me, calling me pathetic. My anger became uncontrollable. "You," I gritted my teeth. "Me what?" Jessica cut me off. She stepped closer, whispering in my ear, her voice laced with venom. "You should know your place. The person Michael needs now is me. Someone young, beautiful, who can help his career. Not some boring old housewife who can't even keep her own husband. The best thing for you to do is to back off gracefully. It'll be better for all of us. If you don't blame me for what happens next." With that, she stepped back, gave a triumphant smile, and walked away proudly, leaving me standing frozen in the middle of the lobby. My whole body was shaking, not from fear, but from rage. The nerve of her! She not only had an affair with my husband but dared to openly provoke, challenge, and threaten me. She was so confident that she thought I was powerless, that I would have to silently accept defeat. Her arrogance was her biggest mistake. She had just lit the fuse to a war whose consequences she could never have predicted. This confrontation erased any last shred of hesitation I had. Initially, I had only planned to send the video to the parents. But not anymore. That was too lenient. I had to do something stronger, more decisive, something that would make her pay a very high price, something that would turn her career, her reputation, and her entire future to dust. I wouldn't just expose her. I would annihilate her. I turned and walked briskly out of Sunrise Academy. In my mind, a new, more perfect and more ruthless plan was already taking shape. This play would have no room for mercy. The fury from my confrontation with Jessica didn't make me irrational. On the contrary, it acted like a stimulant, making my mind sharper and colder than ever. I returned to the hotel, locked the door, and sat down at my laptop. It was time to assemble all the weapons I had painstakingly gathered. I opened the video files, meticulously saved. I reviewed them one by one, not with the eyes of a betrayed wife, but with the eyes of a director editing the most crucial scenes. The first clip was of Michael and Jessica kissing in his office. I chose the clearest angle, one that captured Michael's satisfied grin and Jessica's calculating gaze. The second clip was their conversation insulting me. I edited it, selecting the most venomous phrases: boring old housewife, smells of grease, bland as dishwater. Each phrase appeared as a subtitle on the screen, stark and undeniable. The third and most crucial clip was their plot to steal our assets. I left the entire conversation intact, from the plan to withdraw the savings to the scheme of faking a failed investment. But I didn't stop there. Jessica's challenge had given me a new idea. I decided I wouldn't just send the video. I would package it with other evidence to create a complete portfolio of her crimes. I contacted Megan again, my unexpected ally. "Megan, I need one more favor. Could you write a short account of what happened between you, Jessica, and your old professor? You don't have to use his real name. Just describe the events and her manipulative tactics. I need a third-party account, a former victim, to add more weight to this." Megan didn't hesitate. She said she had been waiting for this day for a long time. Within a single evening, she sent me a long, powerfully written piece exposing the true face of her former best friend. I incorporated Megan's story into the end of the video, as text scrolling over a somber soundtrack. Now, this was no longer just my family's private matter. It had become a public service announcement about a person with a pathological character, a potential danger to the educational environment. Finally, I composed the email. This was the most critical step, determining the success of the entire plan. I thought long and hard about the tone. I would not write as Emily, the betrayed wife. That would turn it into a common revenge plot. I would write as an anonymous parent, a mother whose child attended Sunrise Academy, who had accidentally discovered this truth and felt a responsibility to warn other parents. I polished every word of the email. Subject: urgent warning. The truth behind an outstanding teacher at Sunrise Academy. Body: dear parents of Sunrise Academy, I am a mother who, like all of you, wants only the best for our children. We have entrusted our beloved children to Sunrise Academy with the hope that they will learn in a safe, healthy environment taught by teachers of both talent and integrity. However, I have recently stumbled upon a horrifying truth, a truth concerning the character and ethics of a teacher intern the school is considering for a full-time position, Miss Jessica Miller. I know that sharing this information is extremely sensitive, but as a mother, I cannot remain silent. The safety and future of our children come first. I have attached a video compilation of the evidence I have obtained. This video is unedited and unadulterated. It is simply the truth. In it, you will see the true face of Miss Miller, a person who not only engages in behavior that destroys another family, but also conspires to commit financial fraud with extreme cunning and cruelty. At the end of the video is the testimony of a former victim, proof that this is not the first time she has demonstrated such a profound lack of morality. I have no other motive than to warn you. I leave the judgment to you, the parents, and to the school administration. Can we, in good conscience, entrust our children to such an individual? Sincerely, a concerned mother. After finishing the email, I read it over and over. The tone was neutral, objective, but carried immense weight. It wasn't an accusation. It was a profound question posed to everyone's conscience. I attached the video file and then carefully copied the entire list of parent emails into the recipient field. Hundreds of addresses appeared. I took a deep breath. Everything was ready. All I had to do was wait for the perfect moment to press send, a moment that would create the maximum impact, a moment Jessica would never see coming. And I knew exactly what that moment was. The most perfect time to deliver the final blow was during Sunrise Academy's end-of-year award ceremony. I had checked the schedule on the school's website. It was a grand event held on a Saturday morning, attended by all students, teachers, administrators, and a large number of parents. It was a day to celebrate achievements, a day for the school's image to shine its brightest, and I would turn their day of pride into a day of reckoning. I wanted Jessica to be exposed at the very place she was being celebrated, in front of the very people she was trying to impress. A fall from the pinnacle of glory is the most painful punishment of all. That Saturday morning, I didn't go to the school. I sat at home, in Michael's office, the very room that had given me my first pieces of evidence. I opened my laptop and logged into the prepared email account. The email, with its shocking subject line and damning video attachment, sat waiting in the drafts folder. According to the schedule, the ceremony would begin at 9 a.m. The awards for outstanding teachers and interns were scheduled for around 10:30 a.m. That was the golden hour. I would hit send at exactly 10:25 a.m., 5 minutes before Jessica's name was likely to be called. Time crawled by. I tried to distract myself by cleaning the house, playing with Leo, but my mind was restless. I kept looking at the clock. 10, 10:15, 10:20. My heart began to pound. I sat down at the computer, my cursor hovering over the send button. 10:25 a.m. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and clicked. The email was sent. A feeling of relief mixed with trepidation washed over me. The bomb had been armed. Now, I just had to wait for it to detonate. I couldn't know exactly what was happening at Sunrise Academy, but I could imagine it. Hundreds of phones in the grand auditorium buzzing simultaneously, a few curious parents opening the email, the subject line grabbing their attention. They click on the video. The first images appear. The humiliation, the conspiracy, the lies. A silence begins to spread in a few corners of the hall, then whispers. One person showing another, passing phones around. Gasps of, "Oh my God, I can't believe it," quiet at first, then growing louder. The parent group chats on WhatsApp must be exploding, the video spreading like wildfire. On stage, the ceremony continues. The MC is probably still oblivious, still reading glowing words about the school's achievements, but underneath, an undercurrent is forming. The school administrators in the front row start to notice the disturbance. Their phones begin to buzz, too. They look down, their expressions changing from surprise to horror, then to fury. The entire auditorium becomes chaotic. All focus is lost. People are talking, pointing, and they are probably all pointing at one person, Jessica. She's likely still sitting there in her beautiful dress, face beaming, waiting for her moment of glory. She's probably wondering why the hall has suddenly become so noisy. Then she'll notice the strange looks directed at her, looks that are no longer admiration, but disgust and contempt. She'll see the principal's face turn pale as she hastily gets up and disappears backstage. She'll see her colleagues whispering and distancing themselves from her. A sense of dread will begin to envelop her. And then, the truth will hit her like a tidal wave, washing everything away. Her name won't be called for an award. Instead, she'll be summoned to the principal's office. Her dreams of a brilliant career, of an affluent life, all of it will turn to smoke in a matter of minutes. I sat there, imagining it all. I didn't feel glee, just a profound coldness. She had reaped what she had sown. This was the price she had to pay. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. "Hello? Emily? It's Sarah, your friend." It was Sarah, my friend from the ceramics company who had helped me meet Megan. "Sarah? How did you get this number?" "I have my ways," Sarah laughed. "I'm calling to give you some news. I'm at the Sunrise Academy Awards ceremony. My son goes here. I just watched a very compelling video." "You did good, kid." It turned out Sarah was a parent at the school. A fateful coincidence. "What's happening?" I asked urgently. "Total chaos," Sarah said, her voice full of excitement. "The whole place is a madhouse. That teacher, Jessica, was just escorted into an office by school security. Her face was as white as a sheet. The principal is out here apologizing to parents. A few are threatening to sue the school for hiring an unethical teacher. It's an absolutely spectacular finale." Hearing Sarah's account, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My bomb had detonated exactly as planned, with even greater force than I had imagined. Jessica had been dealt with, but there was still one more person. Michael. Where was he now? Did he know yet? And what would his reaction be? The storm had only just swept through half the stage. While the tempest named Jessica was wreaking havoc at Sunrise Academy, miles away, in a gleaming financial tower in the heart of the city, Michael was still basking in his own glory. He was completely unaware that the very foundation of the perfect world he stood so proudly upon was about to be shaken to its core. Today's meeting was critically important for Michael's career. It was the quarterly business plan presentation to the company's entire senior executive team. If it went well, the position of regional director, a role he had coveted for years, would almost certainly be his. He had poured everything into this, staying up countless nights to prepare. He was confident in his public speaking skills, confident in the impressive numbers he had skillfully massaged in his report. He believed that in just a few more minutes, he would win everyone over and ascend to a new level of prestige. He stood at the podium, looking sharp in an expensive Italian suit, his hair slicked back with gel. He spoke eloquently about strategic vision, breakthrough growth targets, and market potential. His voice was strong and convincing. The executives below him nodded, looking pleased. Michael was inwardly triumphant. And then, the first anomaly occurred. The phone of Mr. Harris, the powerful CEO, vibrated softly on the polished mahogany table. He glanced at the screen, his brow furrowing slightly. He didn't answer, just flipped the phone face down and gestured for Michael to continue. Michael faltered for a second, but quickly regained his composure. But just moments later, the phone of the VP of Sales lit up. Then the head of HR, then the CFO. Like an invisible domino effect, the smartphones of the executives began to buzz with notifications. The once silent room was now filled with tiny, distracting sounds. Michael started to lose his nerve. His polished speech became stilted. He couldn't understand what was happening. He tried to ignore it, raising his voice to recapture their attention, but it was useless. He saw the head of HR furtively typing under the table, her expression shifting from surprise to horror. The CFO coughed, using his water glass to hide a mocking smile. Michael felt like he was performing on stage to an audience that was engrossed in a completely different, more interesting movie. His confidence evaporated, replaced by a growing sense of dread, and then it was his turn. His own phone, silent in his jacket pocket, began vibrating incessantly. He couldn't focus anymore. He stopped his presentation mid-sentence. "Excuse me," he stammered. "I just need 1 second." He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking. The screen lit up with a storm of notifications. Dozens of messages from various group chats. Dozens of missed calls from colleagues. He clicked on the sales team group chat. And in that instant, his world collapsed. His most trusted subordinate had sent a video to the group. No explanation, just a single, mocking line of text. "Things are getting heated, boss. Big storm coming." Michael's hands trembled so badly he almost dropped the phone. He pressed play. The familiar, Painful images filled the screen. His own home office, him, wrapping his arms around Jessica, them, kissing, and then the audio. His own voice, mocking his wife as a boring old housewife. And worst of all, the entire conversation, the entire plot to steal the joint savings account. It was all there, recorded in crystal clear detail. The blood drained from his face, his ears started ringing, he looked up and met the eyes of the people in the room. The CEO's look was one of profound disappointment. The VP's was one of undisguised contempt. They had all seen it. They had seen his true face, a cheater, a liar, a man who belittled the wife who had sacrificed for him, and a con artist. The image he had so carefully constructed, successful executive, model husband, talented leader, had shattered into a million pieces. "This meeting is over," the CEO's deep voice boomed, breaking the terrifying silence. He didn't say another word. He just stood up and left the room. The other executives followed, walking past Michael as if he were invisible. He was left alone, frozen in the cold, empty conference room. He didn't understand. How? Who could have done this? And then, only one name came to mind, sharp and clear. Emily. It had to be her. That quiet, meek woman he had always considered foolish and easy to control. He bolted from the room, ignoring the curious stares of his colleagues. He had to go home. He had to find her. He had to confront her. He jabbed the elevator button, desperate to escape the judging eyes. He tore out of the building and into his Mercedes, a 5th anniversary gift from me. He floored it, the car roaring down the street. He frantically dialed Jessica's number. "The number you have dialed is not in service." He dialed mine. "The subscriber you have called is unavailable." He slammed his fist on the steering wheel, screaming curses. When he reached the house, the gate was closed. He stormed inside, yelling my name like a wounded animal. "Emily, get out here! Where are you?" Silence. He ran through the rooms. The house was too neat, too clean. He raced to our bedroom and threw open the closet doors. My side, once full of dresses and clothes, was nearly empty. All the expensive outfits, the designer bags gone. Only a few old house clothes remained. He checked Leo's room. His toys, books, and clothes were gone too. She had left. She had planned everything. A chilling realization washed over him. He was never in control of this game. He was just a puppet in a play directed by me. He collapsed onto the cold floor, utterly defeated. His vacant eyes landed on his desk. There was a single piece of paper, held down by a crystal paperweight. He staggered over and picked it up. It wasn't a tear-stained letter. It was a professionally typed divorce agreement. My signature, elegant and firm, was already at the bottom. Emily Wells. Taped next to it was a small black USB drive. And at the very bottom, a single handwritten line, as cold and powerful as a final knife thrust. All the original evidence, including the conspiracy to commit fraud, is on this drive. Sign the papers, or we'll see each other in court. And with this, you know it won't just be civil court. Michael dropped the paper. He was finished. He had lost. Lost completely, with no way out, no hope of recovery. He had lost everything in a single morning, all at the hands of the woman he had scorned and underestimated the most. And that was only the beginning of his sentence. That day, I didn't stay in that cold house to await the final act, nor did I stay in the city to hear about the downfall of the two people who had pushed me to despair. Immediately after hitting send on that fateful email, I had quietly taken Leo and left town. We went to a quiet beach resort, a place I knew no one could find us. I needed a complete break, a place with only blue seas, white sand, and the sound of my son's laughter to wash away the filthy memories and allow my soul to truly heal. I turned off my work phone, removed the SIM card from my secret phone, and severed all connections to the noisy world outside. I didn't want to hear, know, or care about the chaos I had created. I was no longer a wife at war. I was simply a mother, trying to mend the invisible wounds my son had suffered. Those days by the sea were peaceful. We woke with the dawn and walked along the beach, letting the small waves lap at our feet. Leo seemed to sense my own liberation. He was no longer the quiet, reserved boy from our stuffy house. He ran, he played, his joyous laughter mixing with the sound of the waves, creating the most beautiful music I had ever heard. We built huge sandcastles and collected colorful shells. Watching the pure, unburdened smile on his face, my heart felt a strange sense of peace. This was happiness, a simple, true happiness I had sacrificed for a life of hollow glamour. After a week, when I felt strong enough to face reality, I turned my phone back on. Hundreds of notifications popped up, but I felt no curiosity or dread. I scrolled past them all looking for a single number. Miss Hanson, my sharp-as-a-tack lawyer. "How did it go?" I asked, my voice calm. "All settled, miss." Hanson's voice was cheerful on the other end. "Your ex-husband signed the papers the very next day. Didn't dare argue, didn't ask for a thing. He agreed to all your terms. The house is yours, full custody of Leo is yours. His only request was that you never bring that USB drive to the authorities." I knew it, I smiled faintly. The thing he feared most wasn't losing his wife or son, but his freedom and his future. "And the tutor?" "Her fate is much worse," Miss Hanson reported. "Sunrise Academy expelled her for gross ethical violations. Her internship was terminated, obviously. I heard her family back home was so ashamed after the story went viral that they disowned her. No one knows where she is now, a true case of reaping what you sow." I hung up, looking out at the distant ocean. It was over. Everything had gone according to plan, even more completely than I'd hoped. Justice had been served. But strangely, I felt no triumphant joy. Instead, there was just a deep sense of peace, a lightness, as if a heavy burden had finally been lifted from my shoulders. This war had cost me a husband, a marriage, a part of my youth, but it had given me back something far more precious, myself. It had returned to me the strong, independent Emily, no longer living for anyone but herself and her son. Returning to the city, the first thing I did was sell the house. I couldn't live in a place so full of painful memories. With the money from the sale and my own savings, I bought a gorgeous penthouse apartment downtown, with a wide balcony overlooking the entire city skyline. I designed the interior myself, turning it into a warm, sophisticated space that was truly ours. And then, I decided to return to my passion, architecture. I started my own small interior design firm, calling it Emily Wells Design. The beginning was tough, but I found joy and meaning in my work. The feeling of creating, of turning ideas into reality, was exhilarating. My firm quickly gained traction, and soon we were landing major contracts. I was no longer the boring housewife. I was a successful businesswoman, a free woman in charge of her own destiny. Occasionally, I heard news about Michael. He was fired from his job due to the scandal. His career was in ruins. He had to sell the fancy car and move into a rundown apartment in the suburbs. He tried to contact me a few times, asking for forgiveness, asking to see Leo. I allowed him supervised visits with our son at a public coffee shop on Saturday afternoons. I wanted Leo to know he had a father, but also to understand that some mistakes can never be undone. The first time I saw him again, I barely recognized him. He was thin and haggard. His eyes no longer held their arrogant gleam, only exhaustion and defeat. He sat across from me, unable to meet my gaze. "Are you doing okay?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "I'm doing great," I replied calmly. Looking at his pathetic state, I no longer felt hatred, only a faint sense of pity. One weekend afternoon, as I was sketching in a quiet bookstore cafe, a man approached my table. "Excuse me, are you Emily Wells, the architect? I read your feature in Design Digest. I truly admire your work." I looked up, surprised. He was a handsome man, a few years younger than me, with a warm smile and intelligent eyes. He introduced himself as Daniel, a freelance journalist specializing in architecture and art. We talked for hours not about our personal lives, but about our shared passions, about creative ideas, about famous buildings around the world. It had been so long since I had felt such a deep connection, a sense of being truly understood. It was the beginning of a new relationship, one built not on sacrifice or dependency, but on mutual respect, admiration, and the harmony of two souls. My life had truly turned a new page, one that was brilliant and full of hope. Looking back on the dark days of betrayal, I no longer felt pain or resentment. I was grateful. It was that pain, that crisis, that had forged the woman I am today. A stronger, more resilient version of myself who, most importantly, knew how to love and value herself. From the ashes of deceit I had been reborn, as vibrant and proud as a phoenix, and I knew that ahead of me was a vast, clear blue sky, waiting for me to fly free, to pursue my own happiness.